Thank you. So honestly, Bijayini really does not need an introduction. So I'm completely going to skip introducing her to this group. I'm sure each and every one of you who's logged in really knows about her and her fantastic work. But there's one quote and one little comment by acclaimed dance critic Alistair Macaulay that I'd like to read. Where he said, if I had to watch a single genre of dance on the proverbial desert island, it would probably be Odissi, the classical idiom of India's eastern state of Odisha. Referring to Bijayini Satpathy in particular, he says she's a woman of exceptional personal beauty and sphinx-like fascination. Satpathy is one of the superlative dancers of our day. In many ways, the title of this conversation, The Beauty of Dance, The Dance of Beauty, is really sort of inspired by Macaulay's fantastic comment. So, Bijayini, thank you so much. Without much ado, I'm going to dive into about 7, 8 questions that I have, and then I will probably throw it open to the group. And if they have any questions as well, they could, perhaps ask you, and you could sort of, and we'll try to wind this up in an hour. Okay. So firstly, Bijayini, congratulations on Vibhanga. Like I said in on the Alap post as well, I really watched it more than 4, 5 times because it was so beautiful. And I felt that each time one was unraveling a different layer. But the thing that attracted me like the most was the shift that occurs in your response when the music shifts, right? This is music that Odissi is not used to sort of dancing to. So I want to ask you, how did you instinctively respond to that music? Was it liberating? I want to ask you in a certain way as well, to sort of be able to use the dance form, practice and perform to sing to another tune. What was that process like?
Well, quite simply, it was always a desire to dance to a Tilana, because every time I've watched a lot of Bharatanatyam, and every time I watch Bharatanatyam, it ends with Tilana. And when I watch a Tilana, I feel like it makes me want to dance. And I find myself, I would say myself, I don't want to say Odissi, but I want to say myself very far from Bharatanatyam. So I'm talking about the inner world of a dance tradition or a form. It's a different path. They may be parallel, but they may be moving apart. But I find myself very far from Bharatanatyam, except when I have listened to Tilana, I've always wanted to dance, and I've always wanted to dance to one. So with the first chance of having to create a new piece, I thought of creating dancing to a Tilana. So when you're talking about the shift of music, are you talking about the shift of music from Odissi music to Carnatic music? Or are you talking about in the piece also there is a shift of music? Because the first half, 7 minutes almost, is like what is like alap.
Right.
It's an alap in which I have created rhythmic punctuation. I find that the Tilana is beautiful by itself. It goes very quickly into fast mode. It immediately begins with that. For me, I found Odissi is a Madhya Laya dance form. It has so many undulations in the torso. I feel like an alap, I wanted to build the raga like the moving body of Odissi builds from those very wiry spirals in the spine to it all becoming inherent in quite complex movement. You don't see that, you don't see those, those winding wires.
Right.
You don't notice them. You notice the sculptural beauty. You see curves, but you don't see the effortful work of the spine in it. So and it is to me very similar to how a raga builds into a bandish or a song. It's the raga's qualities are kept in the song, but the song becomes it. The raga kind of goes into the background. So in that one piece, I wanted to bring in both the song and the building of the song, the making of the song. So reflecting that in dance the making of the Odissi vocabulary that becomes then the dance. So the shift from Odissi music to Carnatic music, it was one inner desire. So I felt like if me considering myself very far from Bharatanatyam, at the same time desiring to dance to a Tilana, I felt like it was cueing me to say that the dance is not very different from this music. The dance can be removed from its ethnicity of being placed in Orissa context,
Right.
and can stand outside and matched and wedded to another musical tradition. I felt the desire emerge from it, so I just put that challenge out there for myself to
Right.
see what happens, and do I start to do. I dance to it a lot, in terms of like just going to the space and playing it again and again before even I structured how many times I'm going to do the Pallavi, the Anupallavi, and then the Sahitya and all of that. Before any decision, I would just move to it to see, am I moving like a Bharatanatyam dancer? And then I saw that my body found ways to remain in the Odissi home,
Hmm.
but differently, but very, very different.
Definitely.
So that's how it was.
Right. Bijayini, you use this word desire, right?
Mhm.
I want to ask you the idea of desire in the context of dance. Like, do you have the luxury or the privilege to always dance what you desire, or do you always dance what you desire?
I The thing is that I have been part of a company for a very long time,
Right.
and I have been extremely fortunate to have been a principal dancer of the company, and collaborated with the choreographer, artistic director Shurupa Sen. You
Right.
know Shurupa and my work with Nityagram until 2018. Shurupa created most of her work with me. We were collaborators from the start, so we dreamed together. We looked, we talked about work differently together. So when she created a work, it was almost my dream come true.
Hmm.
So, and every time stepping up,
Hmm.
raising the bar, and setting another challenge, a little more intricate, little more courageous, a little more ambitious, a
Hmm.
little more probably dangerous sometimes, pushing the boundaries, and sometimes just standing outside of what has been set as the parameters of a huge legacy for a long time, stepping outside and then re-entering from another door, that kind of thing. So it's been our work together for a very long time. So I felt like I have not ever been pushed to do something that I didn't desire. Everything that was presented to me looked like something I want to eat. I want to enjoy and have, and I have had that luxury for a very long time. And
Right.
it's been a privilege and a blessing. And now I feel like I'm tapping into things that were in the back of my head. I probably wanted something else, which are
Right.
now coming to the forefront. I'm just beginning to choreograph. Vibhanga is my first work. It's part of a longer work that I'm creating, and I want to be surprised by what else is there in my desire that will surface, and then I will attend to it. I
Right.
feel like it's worth just taking up anything that comes in, not presented to me, but anything that comes from within me, because that, without desiring, I term that as my desire, which is been hidden and been there for some time.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. Bijayini, I want to ask you a little bit about your choreographic process. Could you speak about it in reference to Vibhanga itself? And also whether
Hmm.
it was in a sort of way stepping out of comfort zone for you.
Very much, very much. I was frightened to begin. I wanted to do this. I wanted to create, but I have never created before. I've never choreographed before. I have danced. I have translated someone else's Shurupa's ideas.
Right.
in my body. I have embodied her, the patterns, her imagination.
Right.
So a lot of times she would start a sentence and I would finish it.
Right.
Sometimes her, giving me faint imagery, I would sharpen the edges and create the picture. And I've done that for a very, very long time. And there was a certain confidence when I did that. When we went into a new work, there was a certain confidence of doing that work of translation or it just transferring idea into shape,
Correct.
you know. Uh, but starting from concept, idea to shape, all coming out of me and having no mirror to check. I mean, I don't really trust what I see in the camera. It has to match how I feel. So I think it was very hard. Not I think, it was very hard because the feeling within is almost like the huge waves of the ocean. And then sometimes I see a picture, it's just a line
Right.
or just a curve or just few lines and few curves. And I feel like, where are the waves? I'm feeling all of that and I'm not seeing all of that.
Right.
The camera doesn't translate all of that. But I felt like when I had a partner, Shrupa was there. I think when you watch live performance is versus an online performance is
Correct.
how you can compare that. When you're watching online, it's limited dimensional, whereas when you watch live performance, it's multi-dimensional. You
Right.
receive with
Yeah.
so many antennas.
Yeah.
All your senses, you receive on your skin, you receive everywhere.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the task that was very hard for me to finally come and conclude this is what remains and this is what goes. To filter what I keep and to shed what was a great exploration, but it can't be part of this. The other challenge was doing this online, the whole thing.
Yeah.
My
Just going to ask.
four of my musicians are in New York, and at that time, when I started the work, it was April last year. So when the lockdown had begun and US was in bad state, and they were all scattered everywhere. Three of them were in East Coast, one was in the West Coast. We had to really match time to coordinate all of our ideas together to decide what stays, what goes, all of that. And it just took it felt like it was taking forever, and I was thinking that it's very, very, I don't think I can do this. But slowly it fell into place thanks to all of them, with everybody's cooperation and everybody's enthusiasm. I think it came together well. I still consider it a work of progress. I don't think it's my final thing.
Right.
So yeah.
I was also going to ask you, did this whole process of imagination become a bit more challenging because you were also having to think about it from the point of view of a camera
No,
versus
no,
live audience? Like, I'm just wondering.
no. I didn't create it. Actually, it was supposed to be done live in October last year at
Right.
Barishnikov Arts Center.
Right.
It was supposed to be a preview
Right.
of the Abhipsa, the larger work of Abhipsa Seeking, and presented live at Barishnikov Arts Center. So I was going to create it. And so the work began that way.
Right.
And I was still hoping that pandemic will go and we will be back and I would be at BAC and performing it
Right.
live. So that's how it began. It didn't start as a camera. It only closer to October we realized that it's not happening. And then also it took some time for BH to get back to me to say that now it's going to be a commissioned special work, and as a video production.
Correct.
So no, most of the dance structuring was done.
Right.
I had to just shoot it for for the film.
Bijayini, incidentally, you used the word work in progress. And in fact, my next question was really about, do you believe that work that you create are constant works in progress? Are there pieces that you have performed that you feel you respond to differently? You sort of envisage them differently now. A piece that you may have performed 10 years ago. And if yes, what are the shifts that occur, and what are those factors that change where we start looking at things differently and we want to respond to them differently? Like, would you think like age, the sociological context that we are in, the political context that we're in, do these factors sort of in some way change? And we also obviously evolve with time, right? So do we respond to work differently? And as an artist, do you feel you're responding to work that you performed many years ago differently as you get older, for example?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's not. I feel like choreography is just a reference. It's a
Right,
draft. So
right,
we set something where this points,
right,
and then we draw very differently from time to time with those points. So
right.
it's a draft, and the draft also we should be. I feel like it takes me 2 years when I was in the ensemble. It took me 2 years of dancing a piece to finally get the piece. 2 years is a long time, and
Yeah,
I'm a different person from every one day to the next. I'm a different person, and as you put it, the social context, the political context, everything that's going on in my personal life. I have, the life, the births and the deaths that we go through of loved ones, and all of that that goes on. Everything has an impact on us. We are changing. Plus, I also feel like going from recorded music, like you dance, you create. I have just created to recorded music. I've not had the live singers, so I'm thinking that it's a sketch for me right now. The Bhanga piece is a sketch. Once I sit down with the musicians, they will bring the live element to it, and I there is another energy. It's not just the patterns of the music
mm,
that I will translate movement, which I have done in a digital space. I
correct.
think it's going to get a different kind of life,
Mm,
even if the structures remain, or even the structures may change.
mm,
So I feel like, and between, I feel the same thing must happen when you have a singer change. Like you have a singer singing for you
yeah,
for a year, and then you have another
yeah,
singer.
yeah.
Any part of your music ensemble changes.
It,
If you change the space, you go from theater to theater. No theater is same. No fourth wall. No that space between the intersection between the stage and the audience is same. In the way we see our audience, the light, everything changes, and that is why there is a fresh element with every performance. If we work very hard on really, getting a hold of the structure of the choreography. We practice, 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 practice. It is not to become machine. It is to break, to be able to be so comfortable that we can engage with the differences,
mm,
is how I see it. And even if the structure remains, if you watch, let's say, Vibhanga from one performance to the other and you see the same structure, I feel like uh, I have received performances very differently that I have seen again. It also depends on where the audience is that day. Yeah. So I feel all of it is a work in progress.
right.
There is never
Like a,
it having arrived. Like, oh, this is it. It changes with every. I think. Yeah.
right.
All the elements. All the elements.
Right. I was just thinking that, a writer, for example, finishes a novel and the novel sort of acquires a final shape in the form of a book and it remains, right? And you kind of like, it's like, but in dance, I think dancers have or musicians have the advantage of being able to revisit it, improvise constantly, right? Like, unlike, um,
That's that's the good. That's the good. And what's very cool about the dance is that one is that the moment dissolves.
right,
In the moment it's dissolved. And for me, what remains is the experience.
right,
What lingers is the experience and the memory of it, and that is why we dance. We never get to see ourselves dance. It not really. I would see a recording. It's still not the same, right? So but it's worth it. It's worth it. So I feel like what we retain from a book, a finished book, is the memory, is I've just lost my father. So if I read a book now, and I read it a long time ago, I think I'll respond to it very differently. So it's the essence of the book at the time I'm meeting it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm meeting it is where the real meaning or value of it for me. And I feel the memory of a performance, the memory of a choreography, when things happen, certain alignments happen. That's what remains with us. So yes, that is good for a dancer, a dancer or a singer, that we can revisit, we can then take away some things, add some things to a piece of work. At the same time, um, it's in constant change. It's all the time changing. It's all the time finding new ways. So it's never finished. At the same time, it's also what was is gone.
Yeah.
It doesn't remain for another day.
Right.
It doesn't ever. Not even from a rehearsal to rehearsal, from the best rehearsal to a performance, it doesn't remain.
Right. I mean, memory is this is probably the first time that I'm like sort of listening to this idea of memory in the context of dance. That's really a powerful insight. Bijayini, you sort of moved out in 2018 to pursue a solo journey. That was about 2.5, 3 years ago. Does going solo, I'm curious, free oneself of, in a certain way, the baggages that we carry by virtue of inhabiting stage and space with another person? If yes, does solo bring with it like excitement, challenges, compulsions of its own? And what has it been like for you, this solo exploration, so to speak?
Um, it's freeing in a way, and it's frightening also. I could cross the river with Shurupa. So I had a partner. I
Right,
had a partner. So I feel each has its own value and importance, and I wouldn't want to change anything.
right.
I have danced with an ensemble for a long time. I have danced with very younger students of mine that I have trained.
Yeah,
They used to be 5 years younger than me until they became 20 years younger than me. In
right.
experience, not only age, they could be my daughters. The last ensemble I was dancing with, they could be my daughters. And I don't want to change any of that, because with every new member that I danced with, I was challenged
Mhm.
to find harmony and balance and proportionality of how much
Mm.
how much from that masala dabba I want to put into my dish. How much I have all of it. How much do I use? I think that's our challenge. Proportionality is the challenge. That's where we practice technique to just make sure just the right amount goes into it, and to have a sense of it,
Mm.
and to have the capacity to build the ability and capacity to measure in the moment how much you want to do it, to so that the macro
Mm.
is what is seen, because it's the choreography with 5 bodies, 6 bodies, 3 bodies that is important. I would say group choreography is 3 and more number of people.
Right.
I don't place duets as group choreography. Duet is another story altogether. Duet is when it's like it's a square and then you cut it in different shapes and they fit. They must fit. It's a real collaboration when you do duet. I have done both. I have danced in groups and I've danced duets with Shurupa,
Yeah.
some with Pavitra, and it takes a different uh, kind of understanding of just one person really tuning in. It's not so much about the choreographic pattern, which is more important in the group setting. I feel like it's more the energies coming together. It's a real match. It's building a real match and a marriage
Right.
where the
Yeah.
duet works. And that's a challenge also, because there is again a sense of proportionality. You must be ready to uh, ready to compensate, for the little things that go off,
Mm.
and or there is a certain times that you must allow for the other person to come forward. Sometimes it's designed in the choreography. Sometimes, a lot of times, it all happens. We were talking about change. It happens in every rehearsal. You sense, you have to be really tuned in to sense um, how is the person. We don't talk. We don't say, how are you today? How are you going to dance today?
Yeah.
Are you going to dance full on? Are you going to, and it's also that person. It's also my journey that day.
Right.
So that day I may have a lot of energy, and what do I do with it? I'm feeling excited because I'm in a happy space, or I'm not feeling good, I'm pushing myself. At the same time, just be completely open to sense the other person, to make that puzzle fit, to make that shape complete is what a duet is. When you do a solo, it's like Hanuman, he has to cross the ocean alone. There is no one. If he falls into the depths of the ocean. So, but at the same time, it's up to him. You change your course, you change your course, you have the freedom. Whereas in the group, or it's the other that becomes more important. You take charge, you hold your space with a lot of responsibility and awareness. But with all of this, one can become a better solo dancer because the awareness is so sharpened that you don't take anything for granted. Even it's like a wing, a pathway, a light sitting there becomes my partner in that journey, and that's my canvas.
Right.
The stage space is my canvas. So if I'm aware of everything, then it's a much more heightened and thus also freeing performance as a soloist.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's all been worth it. I would do it all over again in the same way. And it's all been important and valuable and precious, and a lot of enrichment and learning has come from all of it.
Right. I mean, you use the word control and being in charge, right? And you also use the word heightened sense of awareness, right? I mean, do you feel like being solo has also like sort of, sharpened that entire sense a little more? Like, obviously, like even while working with Shurupa, even while dancing as part of the ensemble, you already probably have that. But would you say that this has sort of activated that just a little more? Would you think so, Bijayini? Like just in terms of
I think it's a little. I think it's more because I'm just a little older with experience, few more years. Yeah. So with the added years, I think it has become my awareness is sharper.
right,
And yes, all of these awarenesses exist. So all of those, antennas go up in when
yeah,
I begin to dance,
right,
whether there is a person or not. So it's up to me now what I do with those.
right,
Yeah, I don't take the space for granted because I am there, and I disrespect, or I not disrespect. I take for granted that I can just do anything I want.
right.
Anything will work because people's eyes are on me. So the
Yeah,
choreography doesn't matter because they're only watching me, right? So I can stand here or there. But why isn't the choreography there and this point and that point?
right,
So I don't, and which is very important in group choreography or a duet choreography, right? It's important that all of that you must reach that point from this point to that point in this angle with this depth. All of that is important. I'm only talking about space, but in
correct,
terms of also musicality, you
correct.
start like we each in a group performance. I start a word, somebody else.
Yeah,
It's all those magnets. You have those words that you put
yeah,
together to create a sentence. It's almost like that, but you can say, I'm a human being, or you can say that being a human means this. I mean, you can
yeah,
bring more value into that sentence made with the same word. And somebody has created value in that structure, the
right,
structure of different words being spoken
right,
by different people. And so in a solo space, I don't just become careless and careless about those structures. I
right.
take a lot of responsibility
Yeah,
with awareness, present what has been created, and then explore from it, bring to it what in the moment is seeking to be expressed through me. Sometimes that needs to be curtailed in a choreography because it's so structured. In a group choreography, it's so structured. In a duet choreography, first and foremost is how are we matching? But in a solo choreography, with awareness of everything that has been designed, with my willingness and with my, with a certain sense of arrangement of everything to have, to give me optimum experience, to then be, let's say, most impactful performance. I feel like with respect to all of that, there can still be a surge of something that happens in the moment, which I can allow in a solo performance.
Correct.
In a solo performance with care, so not to disrupt the design of what has been very carefully. And like I say, it takes 2 years for a piece to really find its space. So when you have spent so much time on something, so much thought has gone into it, so much design and planning has happened, it's not for nothing. So, but at the same time, sometimes, the flower blooms, but it probably doesn't have to be just a flower. You can probably imagine a drop of dew drops and then it comes down from a petal. I'm just using words. So that can happen in a solo performance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you used this word, Bijayini, you said about, you talked about ingredients from a masala dabba, how much, and you talked about for it to be in harmony. And I was just thinking about, in some ways about the whole idea of equation, right? Like, yeah, in chemistry, they teach you that. Unfortunately, they don't teach you chemistry so interestingly. So you keep wondering what is the purpose of an equation. And now by virtue of these conversations, I understand like how important it is, right? How much you sort of add to kind of create harmony and balance and all of that. Well, I want to ask you a little bit about your full-length work, Abhipasa, The Seeking. Is the title also in a certain way reflective? You also just used the word seeking. Is it sort of also reflective of the place that you are in right now, in pursuit of seeking? And I'm also curious to ask you, Bijayini, by virtue of donning the choreographer's hat, do you feel the idea of seeking has also sort of assumed a different sort of notion? I mean, when you're a choreographer and you have a blank canvas and you need to create, do you start seeking, and does that seeking kind of shift from when you're a dancer versus a choreographer? I'm just sort of thinking aloud.
I think seeking is there in all of us at all times, in any hat we wear.
Okay.
But I'm a new choreographer. I really can't speak as a master choreographer, and I wait to see what it does, what it brings to me, what experiences it brings to me. So right now I present it as a simple seeking that what do I desire when I have been given a canvas, as you say? What do I want to draw? And when I place my want there, that is the seeking. So I basically have placed my seeking as a being that has an outer exterior, which is my physicality, and physicality I translate directly into technique. It's a skill set of a form. And then our forms, the traditional forms, or no, I consider no dance form is without intention, emotionality, So then there is that next layer, because without that, the dance is just robotic. Yeah, it doesn't have any meaning. And the next is the inner experience, the core experience that takes place when physics, the body and the emotions come together. So basically, I wondered what was my seeking in physically, what did I want to, and that's where the Tilana came. Like I wanted to dance, my body wanted to dance to a Tilana. Yeah, to just know how it moves. So that's where this seeking came. My second seeking is in the emotional realm. And that seeking is best established when it's in longing for whatever it is. in longing in separation. That is where the longing, that's where the desire, that's where the seeking is at its peak. So it it could be between lovers, it could be in any other situation, but somewhere there is a separation has occurred and there is a seeking. So I'm exploring that as a second piece in the realm of emotionality. And then I'm thinking of as a soul, I have as a child been very, very quiet and curious about what is the meaning of it all. I used to lie down under the stars when there was disruption at home, there would be some commotion and some drama. I would just go upstairs to the terrace and lie down and look at this large universe with the stars, and I would say, we are so small. If you take away the cells, the walls of this house, we are nowhere. We are this little specks. I used to have that as a child, and I have that sense until now. And I have my constant quest regarding birth and death and life and death and afterbirth and rebirth and all of that. So soul is something I don't want to say I connect with it. I'm aware of it. There is an inner being. There's an inner being that is beyond it all. And I find that I think it's all been said. I'm not saying anything new, but I feel like in the essence of our beings, we are the same. And all of us have finally a singular seeking or a common seeking. Not that we want to merge with each other, but we have a seeking which is very similar to the others, and which is just liberation from all of this. It could be mine, but I know that it's been there. It's the liberation from this, the life, the cycle of life, birth, rebirth, death exists. So that's my final seeking in this piece. So I have just placed seeking of various layers as a dancer that I experience: physical, emotional, spiritual is a very heavy word. I don't want to use it carelessly, but a soul's inner seeking. So that's what my work is what I'm exploring.
Right. But Bijayini, would you think that seeking is almost like a sort of a full-time occupation or preoccupation for an artist in a certain way? Like an artist is sort of always engaged in the pursuit of seeking, right? Would you agree?
I think, as I said in the beginning, seeking is the preoccupation of all human beings. I don't think it's only a prerogative of an artist, or it's a. I feel all of us are seeking constantly. If we have this, we're seeking something else. And I mean, the seeking can be mundane seeking. It can be very, I mean, I don't want to demean anything saying that it can be meaningful or meaningless seeking. For someone who hasn't had a fridge, to seek a fridge means a lot, and so things are constantly changing, and as we evolve, and then there is something else, and then finally we arrive having evolved to whatever limit we evolve. I feel like that's where the soul seeking comes, is finally, let me, all of this, yes, all of this is great, have been good, but now the seeking of something beyond it all. Yeah, I feel like, yes, as artists, we are constantly trying to reach beyond our reach. I certainly want to reach beyond my reach and not just be constrained, remain within what is familiar, what I have done again and again and again. So it can, right now, the way I'm speaking, that I don't want to do what I have done again and again and again is probably mundane.
Yeah.
It's not really the other, which has a more valuable space. So reaching beyond, when I say artistically what I have done, like I have done these movements, that's not the experience I have when I dance.
Right.
I have an inner neuropathic experience when I dance. So it's not just the patterns. I'm looking for new ways within the form, and it can become structural, which is mundane. It can also become the inner, which is deeper,
Right.
which is deeper. So yes, that seeking exists, but I think it is no different than seeking of
Yeah.
somebody else
Yeah.
who is probably not an artist.
Right.
Just
Okay.
just let's say my mother, who has been a housewife, and she
Yeah.
has every day she has seeking. She has a different
Sure,
seeking
yeah.
every moment. She's wanting something else.
Absolutely. So you're saying it's not just the prerogative of an artist, right? Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
We
all
are, as human beings, we are seeking all the
the
time
time.
at
Yeah.
different places.
Absolutely. Lovely. Bijayini, I know that you live in rural Bangalore with little internet connectivity. And I know that you've actually taken the time off to come to Bangalore and do this interview. And I really appreciate that. How is this experience of constantly surrounding yourself amidst nature and a certain quiet been like for you artistically? You've always, like when you were in Nrityagram as well, surrounded by quiet. Uh,
Yes.
why is this quiet really crucial for you as an artist?
I feel it's my comfort zone. It's my, because I grew up in Orissa, where I grew up, it was a very quiet place.
Right.
It was it's not a large farmhouse, but it was there was a huge garden, and the owners also lived. We were tenants, and then when we moved, built our own house to an area which is like those extensions of cities. So it was an extension to Bhubaneswar, and there was another house. I remember there was just another house. Now it's crowded. There's no light coming into the house. It's big, like what happens to
Yeah.
urban
Right.
extended, developments. Uh, so when I left from Odisha, I came to Nityagram. From that quiet, so from childhood, I have known quiet,
Yeah.
and also I think in my inner space, uh, quiet resonates with me.
Yeah.
So I find myself, I can get in touch with my real self in the quiet, in the nature, and where there is a constant reminder that we are shifting, changes are eternal, there is no permanence. I don't see a leaf the same way from one day to another.
Yeah.
So it's a constant reminder that things are changing. Also to just accept things,
Yeah.
the constant evolving nature of things, of being, of relationships, of equations, of life, to take it lightly and gently as nature offers so beautifully in such a balanced way. I'm just talking about it in this manner because not thought about it so much, but I feel like these are the messages. I may not think of it when I walk in my garden this way, but I feel like it enriches me, and I feel the unrest when I get away from nature, from the quiet. It's my inner mm, my inner space is disrupted. I can take it only for that long.
Right.
I have to get back to, or if I'm traveling, I have to get to nature. I have to go into a park. If like I love New York City, I love New
Yeah.
York City, but I have to get to a park every day, every other day at least, and spend substantial amount of time.
Right.
That's what quietens me and makes me feel real. I would say makes me feel real. Otherwise, there's this constant interaction, this constant responsive mode, the constant you are always uh, you are a bouncing board, there's something coming at you and you're responding, and which becomes like the outer wall. So the outer wall becomes prominent for me, and then I don't know what is inside. I lose that.
Mm.
So I feel like when the quiet comes, I feel like, okay, now I'm home.
Right. Lovely. You made a reference to nature and you used the word gentle, Vijayani, and it just struck me that, like nature, your dance, and every time I've watched you, I've just thought that there is a certain quality of the gentle and the resilience of strength that sort of comes together in your dance. And how does that happen, Vijayani? Are you conscious of that? Are you conscious that it is gentle and there is strength, because there's so much strength in the dance as well? And do you feel like by virtue of, like you said, watching the leaves change color, a change that grow. Do you think in many ways spending that kind of time and recognizing these changes, being aware of these changes of nature all around us, in many ways also inspire and influence us and our dance? Would you think that that?
There are a lot of things. I think we can talk for hours about this. Uh, First of all, it is life, the strength and the gentleness.
Yeah.
It's life. Uh, Secondly, it's Odyssey. Odyssey for me is strong and so graceful and so fluid and so lyrical, like uh, like a tree trunk. I mean, I say this again and again in lecture demonstrations that the trunk of the tree, if it was not sturdy and strong, you can't have those waves of leaves and flowers, and I mean, you can't. It will immediately become a sculpture. It's not sculpture in the sense a sculpture of a tree. It's not a live tree. It's, you know, the stiffness of the shapes of the branches or the non-movement of the leaves and the flowers. But if that movement had to exist, the firmness, the sturdiness of the trunk has to be there. If the creeper has to beautifully grow, then it has to have a strong support.
Mm.
So I feel Odyssey in its very inner um, um,
Mm.
inherent
Mm.
inherent paradoxical way in its technique
Mm.
gives to us that merge of strong. I won't say fluid is not strong, but sturdy, something that is really stable and
Anchored.
strong and grounded, anchored, and something that's fluid, that's constantly moving,
Yeah.
that's constantly
Right.
moving. So that also gives the balance of that. Uh, and then comes the question of, if I had, I will come to the masala box again. If I had, you have onions, you have ginger paste, you have garlic paste. With that, will you make the same dish again? No. Tomorrow you'll use the same ingredients and make another dish. So I'm then talking about what can be done.
Mm.
So when it all fits in its comfort zone within the body, within the being, then the joy is in rearrangement
Yeah.
of these, just coordinating it is just a little different way to create a different flavor. And that for me is the wonder in the moment
Mm.
of repeating same patterns, because we are constantly doing that. We're constantly doing the same adavas again and again, again. The 30 years since my learning Bharatanatyam, we will be doing same adavas. But what do we find? We're not doing it routinely because somebody said you should do it. It's good.
Correct.
We are all doing it because we are finding something different in it. So I feel like for me, if I don't change the flavor, it's boring. I wouldn't be dancing until now. I would have left long time ago if, like, for the, if for a whole year I was eating the same food. I would not eat that food.
Correct.
So every day, if I don't generate a different taste
Yeah.
in my side, in my inner being, then I don't have any attraction for something that I'm giving my whole life to,
Right.
right? So yeah, that is where the strong and the fluid comes. And of course, all the example of it is in the nature, as we see it very clearly and obviously. And for me, the reference is also in Odyssey. Just look at, I mean, when you look at a sculpture on Konark wall, do you think stone, hard, strong? We don't. I don't see that. I see a stone sculpture, but I see water. I see fluidity. I see lyricism. I see song. I'm not seeing something that's concrete. The sculpture doesn't look like a house,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, blocks and fixed and rigid. It's fluid. It's fluid. So that's what, if I can bring the essence of that strength of being carved out of stone, yet have the fluidity of those beautiful sculptures that we take the inspiration for the dance for. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Johnny, I'll just ask you maybe one or max two questions, and then I'll ask the audience if they have any questions. But I wanted to ask you this thing about how God is in the detail in your dance. And almost everything that you do, like we watch your videos, especially during the pandemic, I've just fantastic videos. I want to ask you, like, what is it like to constantly be a student that seeks perfection? And after a while, does perfection in a certain way become a habit? And if yes, when did that happen for you? Like, did it become a habit, like seeking perfection?
Uh, well, I should say that I'm a little compulsive. So perfection, if you say perfection means arrangement of a certain design, it works for me.
Right.
And it has to be very neat and tidy and clean. So I think that's in my nature.
Right.
And but when you, in the way you put it, like it becomes habit. Habit and perfection are two different things, I feel.
Okay.
I think habits need to be broken.
Okay.
And perfection, yes, I am constantly working to make a habit to break habit. That's why I practice so much that I have, my body knows what to do, so that in the moment I can be in control. At will, I want to change things and break those habits. And those breaking of the habits is not like I'll break a pattern. If it's supposed to be a diagonal, I'm not going to change that diagonal, but I'm going to write a different story with it. I'm going to draw a different painting with that diagonal.
Hmm.
That is the changing of habit I'm talking about. And I am actually, uh, my good performance is when I have been present in the moment and I have savored the taste of every moment in a different way. If like I said just in the last answer, that if I'm tasting the dance the same way the next day, then it's not really worked for me. It's not a good performance.
Hmm.
So perfection in the end is that we make some we build some parameters for ourselves to access in a performance or in a practice,
Right.
and then become fluid and free. But I'm saying fluid and free, that you don't just go off note, off key, off beat. It's not that, but allowing oneself to be, not allowing, actually being present every moment.
Hmm.
Because when you are being present, then you take yourself by surprise. And that is that is where the wonder is. And if I'm surprised, then it's live for me. It's alive for me.
Right.
It's
Right.
not something that's routine, robotic. And God, you speak of God. I'm actually I'm not a God person.
Hmm.
I dance God. I dance gods. And there was a question once in an audience post-performance discussion, that how does it feel to become gods every day? It's a blessing. It's a blessing because I am not Shiva to embody Shiva. I'm not Krishna to embody Krishna. To embody Parvati is a way to become more than myself, even for 15 minutes. If I'm doing Shivashtakam and I have the access to Shiva's being, who, I mean, and we have the license to do that.
Yeah.
I have a license to become Shiva and even push his being beyond my imagination of what Shiva has been every single day.
Right.
So for me, gods are that. For me, gods are that experience of really pushing the boundaries inside me, ripping it open and really accessing the enlarged space that I can occupy in the name of God. So and I think for us in Hinduism, I think all these gods are symbols. They are to access a certain aspect of life, the presence of something, whether it is knowledge, whether it is wisdom, whether it is wealth, whether it is music, dance, art, architecture, everything. Vishwakarma is the deity for this, and we have them. So
Right.
when we have the deity, we uh, dance or even music. I think when someone speaks like a devotee to the Lord or sings for them, I don't know what the singers imagine, but for us, we are constantly shifting between the devotee and the deity. I become the deity, and I then put myself outside, become the devotee, and when I become the deity myself,
Yeah.
to establish, like, the admiration for the deity, I become, I embody him, her. It's just a very acceptable, let's say, license to allow oneself to cross boundaries that otherwise I can't cross
Right.
as a human being. Yeah, so I feel like it's a luxury, and I am grateful for that. But I'm not a everyday flower offering to uh, a, a god or deity, an idol, an altar. I have an altar. It's beautifully decorated by the person who decorates, who helps in my house, and she does a beautiful job. And I enjoy the ritual uh, of seeing that beauty every time I go past it. But that's where it ends in me, in the limit of being Bijayini. Bijayini as this person. But when I dance, I am more than myself. I'm definitely more than myself. And that is why I dance.
Yeah.
Because this is not, I mean, this is okay. But for me, what is extraordinary is what that, I can just break that wall of being the journey and inhabit other spaces that gods bring to me.
Wow.
Because our dances are about mythology, and that's where the gods and goddesses come into
Right.
being. And then they are talking about great benevolence, compassion, and uh, at the highest of the meaning of those words, the optimum of it. Like if you
Right.
talk about benevolence, you talk about kindness, if you talk about compassion, you talk about forgiveness, you talk about all of these virtues that we talk about, they are uh, at the pinnacle of it. When we talk about examples, that the victory,
Yeah.
the desire to become Ravana's desire to just take it all, and all of that. I
Correct.
think accessing it is a luxury, is a privilege, is a blessing. So I don't take it for granted, because it all depends on this body as an instrument. Uh,
Right.
so as long as I have it, I feel like, yeah, I can die today and life has been worth it,
Fabulous.
because I've gone into some brilliant inner world and outer world while being my very limited self.
Thank you so much, Bijayini. I have a bunch of questions more, but I want to respect the fact that I told you it's 1 hour. If anyone else has any questions, could you unmute yourselves and maybe we can take about 2 questions um, if anyone has any questions. You can just turn your video on, unmute yourselves and ask a question. Shloka, anyone?
I have a very silly question, and it's really something that I think I have felt when I have watched Bijayini dance, and now that's a few times. I think it was very interesting what you said about practice, allowing that kind of free-flowing control. And how do you, and as a dancer, I do kuchipudi, I don't do Odissi, but as a dancer, how do you marry that control and that sort of technique within the choreography and the spontaneity on stage? As in, what is the switch that turns on or turns off when you are on stage and under that kind of light? As in, it's a very magical feeling that it's not something you can put a name or a word to it, but like you said, when you savor it. So how do you marry that control and spontaneity, which is really one of the essences of, I think, most Indian classical dances?
It's a very good question. I really don't have words to, or an example would be perfect to explain this, but I feel like I'm short of words to explain it, except to say that the structure, our dances are very structured. The structure may remain, and it's not a willful marriage. I don't decide. I let it happen. So the thing is that being free within the structure. if that can make sense, that you have a structure, but then embody it so much with uh, control, or also readiness, a certain readiness, that as it happens fluidly, when there are provocations, provocations that could be internal, provocations that could be external, that you are free to respond to it. And the response will not be seen structurally, externally, in shape, formally. The structure will be felt. So, and that is how I think some of us, I don't think we equally like all dancers or all performers. So if I love Kumar Gandhar, someone may not like Kumar Gandhar, somebody may like Vincent Joshi. So it might then resonate with some of us, but in feeling, not so much in shape, not so much in shape. So it's not like, oh, she drew that pattern so beautifully. It's not what it is. It's something that's felt in the gut, is what I feel. So it's not something that I can decide that we can willfully do, but it when there is a nudge, one must be ready to allow it to happen. And it happens sometimes. Sometimes I'm not in complete control of it, even after long practice and having known my stuff very well. I know I'm not answering it very well.
No, it's a very good answer, and I just have one follow-on question, and I think you spoke about your inspiration with nature, and that's why you base yourself a little out of an urban city. But do you have any other sources of other inspiration? A book or a painting, or if you have, or what is currently your favorite inspiration, even in lockdown? And we've had such a the internet has been seen as a savior of many artistic things in the last year, in terms of exposure. So have you had something that you'd like to share?
Anything that catches my attention becomes an inspiration for me, and I probe in, I go in. Like right now, I'm reading Obama's book. So anything, and that's quite a journey. That's quite a personal journey when you read his book. So yeah, even piece of sculpture, if I'm seeing something, I have not been very drawn to online performances. So I'm kind of swimming from shore to shore, and I see some very, very interesting moving bodies and interesting movements. So I go into that and I look at that. But anything that catches my attention for more than a glimpse is something that I know that has something to me, and I probe in and I go in. Nature always does it, without question.
Bijayini, there's a question from Caroline, and she'd like to know what encouragement or direction or advice do you find emerging artists need the most?
What? Sorry, say again.
Let me repeat it. What encouragement or direction do you think emerging artists need the most?
I feel like we need to unhurry a little bit, if that can be a word, and I think dance becoming performance takes time. We need to accept that that length of maturity that is required. I feel like I noticed that we get disheartened quickly. There is also the whole bureaucratic setup that exists, and I know that I'm not undermining that. That has an effect, but I feel like patience, resilience of a certain kind is required in the pursuance of art, because it's not something that is shortcut. There is no quick answer to it. You do have to chew. If you swallow a piece, you have only got that much. But if you chew, then you go get the juice. So that chewing needs to be done. The body, the cell, the blood, the bones need to get the meat of, what that structure is, what that shape is, what that choreography is, what that music is, what the meaning is, what that poetry is. All of that needs to be embodied, and it doesn't come quickly. So I feel like, let's not look for quick answers. Let's not look for quick results or quick paybacks. There has to be patience. That's the only way things become better for us. And I think anybody who's in the business of learning art or pursuing art already probably has a taste of what it is that is rewarding for us. It's not a big bunch of cash. Usually, it should also come with cash, because when we work, we practice, nobody pays us. We do it out of our own goodwill. Own desire to match a certain standard that we imagine for ourselves. But unfortunately, that's not how things are. At the same time, it's definitely not the bundle of cash that makes me happy as a dancer. It's my experience. It's the memory of a performance that makes me happy. It's that moment in the rehearsal that makes me happy. So, and that comes with time.
Is there
I have
time for one more question?
No, I have a question.
Okay, sure. Please go ahead.
Okay, so who is asking? Is it me?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can ask your question.
Okay.
I think you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was saying thanks for this wonderful conversation. So I missed a bit in between because of network issues. So I don't know if she covered it. Bijayini ji, your videos are like a rage. Your fitness videos or the ones on your technique. So was it always that you practiced like that, or did it develop over a period of time? And how did you develop such strength in your body?
Yes. When I came to Nrityagram when I was 20, it was a full days of work. So it's actually a real Gurukul. You live in, you have 10 hours a day routine. So it was divided as conditioning and then practice of the, let's say, adabus, Bharatanatyam term, but like the basic skill set, the vocabulary, and then practice already choreographed standard choreographies, and then work on new work. So there was this rigor that came into the discipline of practice, which I can't get away from. I love it. I know the benefit of it. I feel the benefit of it in my body. So I stay with it. Even when I'm practicing alone since 2019, I have a similar discipline. I feel like the body is our instrument and it must be worshipped. I feel like it must be worshipped. And when I say worshipped with care, worshipped with discipline, and worshipped with gentleness. So you need to also forgive itself. You need to hear it, listen to it, what it says. And discipline, you have to, again, bring the right proportion of everything, because every day if I want to sleep and not wake up and do my, let's say, yoga or conditioning, how much am I going to listen to my body? Yeah, maybe there is something else at work. But if this is my chosen profession, I feel like I still need to listen really carefully, take care of it, and bring a certain regimen, discipline, I would say, with gentleness. And I think the proportions of how much you do when you are 20 to how much you do when you are 40 to how much you do when you're 70 is different, right? I'm sure C.V. Chandrasekhar sir doesn't dance like how he danced when he was 25, right? But you see his work. So he's doing something with it. I know Baryshnikov works definitely for 2 hours every day, if not more, 2 hours by himself, just to take care of his body and health. ability, skill, all of that. And then besides that, whatever work he's practicing to perform or learning to work. So there are people who are invested, are good artists who are invested in maintaining, and I feel like it works for me. I like that.
Do you
Thank
have
you so
time
much.
for one more question? Do you have time for one more question, or can we wrap?
It's okay. Let's do one more and then close.
Okay. I think I'm going to ask the two questions. One is from Meghna, and she says, how important is it for a professional classical dancer to be understood? That's one question. Meghna, do you want to unmute yourself and probably elaborate that just a little?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Eka. So, I mean, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So, as a Bharatanatyam dancer, I find that we are constantly trying to explain everything that we do, and I always find that there is a huge sort of gap between people who there's a gap between what I say and what people receive. And sometimes I find that that changes the choice of what I want to present based on whether I might be reaching people more. So is that a personal, I don't know if I'm articulating it correctly, but is that a choice that every artist has to make? Or is it, I mean, do we have to accept a certain degree of, okay, we're not going to be able to get this across? Or
I feel like we can't be serving what someone else wants to eat, because there are hundreds of people in the audience, and everybody wants a different flavor. What's my best? What do I want to serve is first, and it's like when you want to share something, you must have value for it. You can't give, people like tandoori chicken, so I will feed them tandoori chicken, but I hate tandoori chicken. It's like I hate capsicum. I can't digest it. I can't bring it home and make a dish with it and serve it. What will I make with it? What I won't even be able to taste it. So it's that, and we don't have to. We cannot. One is we cannot explain everything. Dance is so layered. The transition, the flow between one thing to the next is so intricate, so detailed, so nuanced. There is no way. I can only tell you the gist, the précis of the story. And it's then up to them what character was the Sita in that context I presented for you, for Akhila, for somebody else, and for somebody else. They will see a different Sita. It'll have some similar texture, but the character will always be different. The situation will always be different. Some people will see something totally different. So it's not my responsibility to serve it and explain it, the ingredients, everything in the proportion. No, I'm not going to do that. It's the dish that will be served, and it's people's taste. If somebody has already eaten sweet and eating a sweet after that, they'll not taste it as that sweet, right? It'll be very, very different. So it's, I think, same. And there's just no way we can explain everything. Even like if I have to explain everything I do in 2 minutes, it's going to take me an hour or more. That's how much goes into 2 minutes of dancing, or even just like 2 lines of a padam. If you do twice, just 2 lines, there is so much information in it. How are you going to explain anything? So I feel the best is not to explain, just give a little gist of the story and little idea, and let it then take shape in a different way, become a bigger cloud in the audience's perspective and reception.
Thank you. Bijayini, just one last question from Ishna Benegal, and she says, how do you deal with your own expectations while creating or practicing? Does it interfere with your process, or does it improve it?
I don't have an expectation of myself. I don't go, I have a context, I have a concept I want to work with, which means I've already chosen the lyrics or the text or the music or I go with that. But there is no structure that I have given myself to begin the work with or place it as the centerpiece. I don't know, I'm just speaking words as to what happens in a choreography. So there is no expectation. My expectation is that in the process of creating the draft, which I call choreography, the draft, the points and the blueprint for what will become a work in progress for a very long time till it matures to become really flavorful to its maximum. I want to be surprised while I'm in the process of making it. And the surprise will reveal to me what is the central point of it, what is what makes it happen, which is the opening, which the opening can come in the end, in fact. There can be lots of different things that can come into play, is how I am looking at choreography. And as I said, I am a new choreographer. I really don't know. I would like to say, I do not know anything about choreography. I'm only finding my patterns and my ways of working. So I don't go to the floor with expectation from myself. My only expectation is that I want to be present every moment, and I want to be surprised in land of wonderment every moment.
Thank you so much, Bijayini. My head's like just so full of so many beautiful words that you used actually, and it's going to take us some time to actually think about these words and sort of like I said, like watching Vibhanga, one had to watch it a couple of times again and again. And I feel like this conversation is also a lot like that, especially the idea of memory that you talked about was so beautiful, the importance of desire. And I loved how the food metaphor kind of became a recurring motif in a certain way, about how I think even Meghna's question was about, we can't serve up a dish that we are not convinced about, right? And I think that those are some really powerful ideas that you shared. I totally appreciate you taking time off and traveling to the city and doing this for Alap. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who joined. We'll be in touch. Thank you again, Bijayini, for all that you do and for inspiring the artistic community with everything that you do. Thank you so much. Have a great
day. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Akhila.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.